Welcome to our show. My name's Brett Vigodsky. I'm here along with my partner, Rachel Gilmer. Rachel, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. We're just happy to be here and answer some of the public's questions regarding personal injury law. So let's get started. Rachel, very general question. What is personal injury law?
Personal injury is just any time you have been injured due to somebody else's fault. So an injury to yourself, usually an injury to your body, to your person, that is not your own fault. The injury was caused by someone or something else.
Are personal injury settlements taxable, and can personal injury settlements be garnished?
Two questions there, and both of them depend on the circumstances in part. So in general, personal injury settlements as a whole are not taxable, but parts of personal injury awards can be taxable. So it depends on if you have a settlement versus a jury verdict. Usually when you get a personal injury settlement, it's a lump sum settlement, and it is for your injuries, but we don't usually itemize out necessarily lost wages. But if you do itemize that out in your settlement, that can be taxable. If there is a settlement that includes punitive damages, which is rare, but it can happen, that can be taxable. But generally speaking, the injury portion of the personal injury settlement is not taxable. Now, if that same case is taken to a jury trial and you get a verdict for that personal injury, everything is itemized out by the jury. So they're going to say, this much is for lost wages, this much is for medical bills, this much is for pain and suffering, this much is for punitive damages if those apply. And when that is done, that's when you see more tax consequences, because some of those categories, like I said, the lost wages, the punitive damages, can be considered taxable income.
And I guess it makes sense that the lost wages would be, because you would be paying taxes on those wages if you had gotten them without the verdict.
Right. And so while the lost wages may be claimed in a pre-suit settlement, when you actually work out and negotiate the settlement, it can happen, but it's rare that you go kind of paycheck by paycheck and itemize that out. Instead, it's often lumped into the pain and suffering of having to miss out on that income for whatever period of time you were unable to work. And that's why it's not usually taxable in that context. But again, it depends very much on how that settlement agreement is written and exactly how everything is itemized out. And I believe your second question was whether or not those the income from a personal injury settlement can be garnished. And
Correct.
It can. Again, it depends on how it is set up. It depends on what is done with that money once it reaches the individual. But if there's already a judgment against the individual, it is possible that some of that money can be garnished. If the person takes possession of the money and then has a judgment or a garnishment entered against them after the fact, that money can be considered income that can be taken. But again, it depends on what's done with that money and how it goes to the individual. There are ways of some structures and some protective mechanisms that can be put in place if somebody is worried about their money getting garnished. But again, it's very fact specific, depends on exactly what the garnishment is for and exactly how you're getting the income in the first place.
Okay. Let me go back to the taxing of settlements. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds with the audience out there, but you mentioned it, there are lump sum settlements, but then there are also what are called annuitized settlements, where let's say maybe, I'm just making up an example, let's say the first $50,000 of the settlement is a lump sum, but then after that, the individual gets $10,000 a year for the next 10 years. Are those yearly payments taxable, or is that treated any differently than the lump sum?
So usually not. Again, depends on how that annuity is set up, but we see that a lot. I often do a structured settlement like that when we have a settlement for a minor child, because they can't get their money until they're at least 18. So we set up payments to start occurring after they turn 18. The other time we do it a lot is if there are catastrophic injuries and you want to make sure the person is receiving money over a period of time to help pay for medical costs or other costs associated with their injury that maybe aren't covered by health insurance. And so we will work with a client to suggest things like that, just to make sure they're not getting a big lump sum at the beginning that maybe gets blown or could be taken in a garnishment or something like that. It just helps protect them. So typically the way you set up that structured settlement avoids any tax consequences as well. But again, you have to work with your attorney and the person setting up the annuity and all that to make sure that you're getting the best tax benefit possible.
I know this next one's a pretty broad question, but just in general, how do personal injury claims work?
Yeah, it is a broad question, but in general, you've been injured. I always recommend that you talk to an attorney, find out what your rights and options are. Assuming you hire an attorney, then the attorney's typically going to say, we are not going to attempt to resolve the claim until you have completed your treatment. And the reason for that is that in personal injury claims, typically there's an insurance company involved on the other side, and they only pay one time for the injury, for the personal injury. Different for property damage, different if there's multiple people involved, but one time per person for a personal injury. So using you as an example, Brad, if you got in a car wreck tomorrow and had to go to the hospital and then maybe needed some treatment moving forward, if you were to accept money right after your initial ER visit to help cover the cost you had to pay out of pocket for that, that would end your case, okay? It wouldn't matter if you then needed a surgery or months of physical therapy, you would have injured your claim. You would have ended your claim. So for personal injury claims, I always advise my clients, look, how long this is going to take really depends on how long it takes you to get better, because I don't want to try to settle your case until you've completed your medical treatment. I know what all your medical bills are. I know how long you were out of work. I know how long it took you to get better. All right. So once the person reaches what we often refer to as maximum medical improvement, then that's when the attorney will try to resolve the case. If the case can't be resolved, you can't reach a settlement, then we look at filing a lawsuit and going through the court process. If you go through the court process, then you're going to have a lot of depositions, discovery, things like that until you get to a jury trial, and then present the case to a jury and let them give you an award. But either way, the end goal is either to reach an amicable settlement or to get a verdict from a jury to determine the value of the claim. Once that value is determined, then that sets the parameters for what the insurance company or the individual who caused the injury is responsible for paying you.
Okay. Let me ask you if this sounds like an accurate description of the requirements for a personal injury claim. And I'll never forget this. One of our partners, when I first started here years ago, said, think of it as a three-legged stool. You have to have damages on one leg, you have to have liability on another leg, and you have to have coverage on another leg. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, and I think we often will say it's damages, it's liability, it's causation.
Causation, okay.
Yeah, and so, which really I would say coverage is almost your fourth criteria, because you can have all three of those legs on the stool, but if you don't have any coverage, if there's no money to pay it, you can have a claim, a piece of paper that says your claim is worth a certain amount all day long, but there's nobody to pay it. But yet...
And how many times do you and I see that?
Way more often than we would like.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it?
It is. I think it's crazy. Florida is one of, I think, only 2 states left that we allow you to buy auto insurance and have no bodily injury coverage, which means I can go and buy valid Florida auto insurance, protect my car, protect if I cause damage to another person's car, but I do not have to buy coverage to protect if I cause a personal injury to another person. So unfortunately, we see that more often than we would like, where the at-fault driver has no personal injury, bodily injury coverage. Then if you don't have uninsured motorist coverage, which is a whole separate topic, then again, it doesn't mean you don't have an injury. It doesn't mean you don't have a claim. It doesn't mean somebody else wasn't at fault. But if there's nobody to pay that, You're stuck with nothing.
And that's tough explaining it to clients, isn't it?
It's very tough. People typically don't understand how policy limits work until they are sitting across from us at the desk. So it's a hard pill to swallow when you find out that you've been injured or your loved one's been injured. It wasn't their fault, and there's nobody to pay the medical bills and the pain and suffering and the lost wages. But unfortunately, especially in Florida, where we don't have mandatory bodily injury limits, it happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Okay, next question we have is, how real is personal injury court compared to TV or films?
Yeah, I would say not very real at all. I think,
Judge Judy.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. What I find when watching legal shows, which is often painful as an attorney to watch, is how fast it happens on TV. You know, I mean, you're in a wreck, you're injured, and you're getting not just a settlement, but you're all the way in front of the jury, you know, within a matter of weeks, if not, days. And
it doesn't
happen. I mean, I tell people that on average for a minor injury, you're looking at 6 to 12 months. If you have significant injuries, then you're looking at 12 to 18 months. If you're having to go into litigation and a trial, you're usually looking at, 2 to 3 years from the date of the wreck. I met with a mutual client of ours this weekend, and unfortunately, the young man has catastrophic injuries. And because of the way the case is going to have to be set up, I told him that he's looking at 5 to 10 years. That's an extreme, but it happens. Yeah. It's part of it. So I think that's the biggest difference with TV. Also, a lot of the big courtroom drama and the big blow-ups and the arguing and the screaming and yelling at each other, it's never quite that dramatic. There's plenty of times where I know we both get frustrated with the other side, but it's pretty rare that we're screaming and yelling and cussing someone out. We advocate hard, but we try to be cordial and do what's best for our client. But, I wish it was a little closer sometimes to what we see on TV and the speed of things, but I'm glad we don't have the, hair pulling and throwing shoes and all that at each other in the middle of the courtroom.
I know what you mean. Okay, next question is, will a personal injury settlement affect Social Security disability, child support, or other payments like that?
Great, so I'm going to answer part of this, and I'm going to make you answer the other part since you do a lot of Social Security disability. The short answer is yes, it can. I know you do a lot of disability and a lot of work comp, but also the personal injury side of it. I do not do anything really other than personal injury. And it is a little different, the child support, on how we handle it in personal injury. We have to be actively notified of a child support lien in order to require us to pay a child support lien from a personal injury settlement. So if we are not notified of that by either the court or the person who's owed the child support, then we really don't have to do anything to proactively seek that information out, which I know is very different from work comp. So it just depends on what we know and what we're told. Disability, it again depends. I mean, I guess I would say the biggest thing is for if you are on any type of like Medicaid benefits, then if you get a personal injury settlement, there are income limits. So if you've gotten over a certain amount of income, you may lose your Medicaid benefits. But you're not going to lose necessarily your disability benefits, right?
You could if you're on SSI. SSI is a need-based system versus SSD. So people that haven't paid in enough quarters into the system can apply for SSI, and yes, you could lose those benefits depending upon how much you're making or how much your net worth is. But if you're on Social Security disability, the most there can be is an offset. And what we do when we're settling workers' compensation cases, there's what's called, and again, I don't want to get too confusing for the public out there, but it's called the Hartman language, to where we break down their lost wage portion of the settlement on a weekly basis over the course of their lifetime, so that if Social Security were to get a hold of the workers' comp settlement, it's a very minute offset that they can take on a weekly basis. So to answer your question, yes, they can reduce their Social Security disability, but I would not say to a great degree. As far as the child support, yeah, we have to find out, we have to be proactive in finding out if the client owes child support, if they're living in the state of Florida, or let's say they moved to Oklahoma since their workers' comp injury. We've got to write Oklahoma child support and find out they owe child support in that state. So yeah, it's a very strong burden that the court placed on us. Now, I will say this: if the child support amount that is owed is greater than the net settlement, then we only have to pay half of the net settlement to the court.
Up to a maximum amount of half.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And similar, if we find out on the personal injury side that there is a child support lien, we can negotiate what we have to pay. I mean, that's not going to reduce what the overall lien is and what the individual owes,
Sure.
But we can negotiate how much of that lien or back owed child support has to be paid directly from
so
the personal
that the client's
injury settlement.
not having to come out of pocket their entire settlement amount,
Right.
potentially.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Rachel, let's say that I have a personal injury claim, or I think I do, and I don't know whether or not I need to hire an attorney. I'm thinking I do, but I'm a little hesitant because I've just never done that before. Lay out a roadmap as to what somebody should do in that situation.
So at Levin Papantonio, we offer free consultations to meet with one of our attorneys. So I encourage anyone who thinks they may have a personal injury claim to call us. You can call our main office number. We have a intake form on our website. We have an online chat on our website you can go through as well. So whatever's the most comfortable way for you to get in touch with us, then you will be connected to the personal injury department, and we will set up a meeting with one of the personal injury attorneys, myself, you, Brenton Goodman, any of our attorneys that are handling personal injury, and that's a free consultation. There's no charge. So I always tell people, look, there's no risk to you other than the time you spend having that appointment. I think we make it well worth that time in educating the person on what their rights are, what their responsibilities are, what their options are. We don't put pressure on people that if you come in, you have to sign a contract with us. You have to hire us. I mean, that's one of the, I don't want to say the last questions I ask, because hopefully there's some follow-up after that. But after I kind of explain to the person, after I hear what happened to them and then explain to them what their options are, I always say, do you want to hire us? Is this something you're interested in? And sometimes I make a recommendation that I don't think they need an attorney because of, again, a bunch of different factors. Maybe we've figured out pretty quick there's no insurance available. And so I tell them some things they can do to help themselves. But if they are interested in hiring us, then at that point we sign a contract with them. I know there are some places where you sign a contract before you ever meet with an attorney. We will never ask you to do that at Levin Papantonio. We always want you to talk to an attorney first. We also, while we are here locally in the Panhandle, we can do the appointments in person in our office. We can do them by Zoom. We can do them by phone. We even have, it doesn't happen all the time, but I've been to our local hospitals twice in the past month, and even went to a hospital out of town to meet with clients. They just couldn't physically get to us, but they wanted to meet with somebody in person. We always try to accommodate that the best we can. And we can do all the documents. Obviously, if you're in the office or we're with you, we've got them right there for you to sign. But we have a whole system for electronic signing if that is easier for someone, if they've done a Zoom appointment or by phone. And some people aren't comfortable signing electronically, but they also don't want to come down to the office. I get that. We'll mail everything to you with a return stamped envelope so that you can sign it in the comfort of your own home and mail it right back to us. So we try to make it as easy as possible for the injured party, recognizing that they're already hurting. They've probably already missed some work. They may not have a vehicle that's easy to get to us. They got a lot going on in the moment, and so we want to make it as easy as possible to be able to hire us, or at least have that consultation and find out what your options are.
Rachel, if somebody's meeting with you either by phone, live, or Zoom, are they always speaking with you, or will there ever be a situation where they're, and no, I'm not being demeaning, but just asking this question, will they ever just be relegated to a staff member of yours to get signed up from the initial consultation?
We always make sure the initial consultation is with an attorney. Now, there are times where they may actually talk to an investigator first, because we can have an investigator on site sometimes if there's something going on urgent on a case, same day, next day. So they may talk to an investigator, but they are never going to be asked to sign a contract without having met with an attorney first, which I think is one of the great things about our firm is our attorneys are very involved in the whole case process. We immediately put together a team of an attorney, a case manager, an investigator. Depending if it's a bigger case, we may have more than one investigator, we may have more than one attorney. But we are always going to have that core group, but the attorney stays involved in the case all the time. I mean, I have clients, they email me regularly, they call me regularly. Yes, they talk to my staff as well, but I tell them all the time, we are a team, and the whole team needs to stay informed, and that includes the attorney. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits of our firm is we make sure our attorneys stay directly involved, and we don't ever just pass a case off to a staff member.
Rachel, I think we had a great show today. Thanks for coming on, and we look forward to many, many more shows in the future.
Thank you, Brett.